Most of my guitars have 21 frets, but I've never seen anything like this guitar here, because this has 31 frets. And I've surprisingly discovered that there's actually a lot of really cool things you can do with this that you can't do with any other guitar. This is an early 80s Hondo Longhorn, and with more frets than just about any other guitar, it's earned its place in the world's weirdest guitar series. I've been really quite surprised to find out just how much more you can do with 10 extra frets. Now, the history of this guitar is intrinsically linked to a guitar from the 50s, the Danelectro guitar line. And Danelectro is such a fascinating company to me. See, back in the 50s, they made affordable guitars out of masonite, plastic, and other cheap materials. And while I'm sure they would have been fine staying in that lane, at the same time, they're also getting weird with it, pushing the boundaries of what a guitar can be. For example, Danelectro introduced the first electric baritone into the world in 1956. Check this one out. In the 60s, they manufactured a guitar that was meant to sound like a sitar. Another example of Danelectro pushing them limits was in 1958 when they came out with the Guitarland. This was an extended guitar meant to give guitar players the range of both a guitar and a mandolin. Now, the Guitarland never took off for a number of reasons that have become quite apparent to me since I started playing this, but that didn't stop a number of brands from paying homage to this failed design over the years. One of those companies was the Japanese brand Hondo with the Longhorn. Do your solos sound like a bunch of notes thrown together more than music? Is there a divide between what you hear in your head and what comes out of your instrument? And so often for this, the fix is easy. You gotta start thinking of your music more like a language. Musical storytelling is the focus of my course, The Craft of Soloing, and we got a flash sale going on for that right now. If you use the link in the description, for a limited time, you're gonna get that course $70 off for only 10 bucks. And this is one of my favorite courses I've done because it really is the light bulb moment for a lot of guitar players. In it, I discuss how you can elevate your solos by treating them like a story. Thinking about phrasing, bringing in musical space, developing motifs, creating a story arc, these kind of things make such a huge difference. If this sounds like something that you'd be interested in, use the link in the description, pick that up while you still can. Alright, so why don't we talk about what's going on with this guitar before we start getting weird with it. This is a Hondo Longhorn that would have been made in Japan sometime in the early 80s. And this particular guitar is named Karen because somebody decided to carve the name Karen in the back, so it will forever be the Karen Longhorn. And these guitars were by no means high-end. It would have cost about $400 to $500 in today's money back when it was brand new. And despite only having one pickup, there's actually quite a variety in tonal options here. This switch allows you to select either side of the humbucker or both the pickups. We can put them out of phase, and then this here gives them a boost. But the real reason we're all here is the extended range. See, the highest note on a typical guitar like my Telecaster here is the 21st fret, the high C sharp. On the Hondo, we got 10 more frets taking us all the way up to this crazy high B. Which brings us to the next question. What's the point? What can we even do with this? And the more I played it, the more interesting things got. I started out by thinking, okay, you know what? I could play a solo and use these high notes as a big climactic ending. I was like, well, what if I put a capo on the 12th fret and treated these higher notes more like an electric mandolin type thing? I'll tell you, this huge cutaway here makes all these higher notes so much easier to access. And with this high range where everything is closer, it makes it so that you can find chords and intervals that you never would have been able to reach otherwise. You know what else is cool? If you double a normal guitar part an octave higher, it creates a really unique timbre. And this got me wondering, if I played a guitar part like this and digitally pitch shifted that down an octave, would it just sound like a normal guitar? It does not. Or what if I did the opposite? I took that part up an octave. Would it freak out my dog? It did not. A, because I don't have a dog, and B, because the highest note here, even shifted up an octave, is only around the 7 kilohertz range, whereas dogs start freaking out around the 20 to 50 kilohertz range. And perhaps the coolest thing I figured out that you can do on this guitar after watching Andre Flood's video on a similar guitar is use this thing for harp harmonics. And harp harmonics are a technique that have fascinated me for years. I'm far from an expert on it, but it's something that you see jazz and classical players use. So check this out. We all know that if you take the open string and lightly press on the 12th fret, when you hit it, it creates this bell-like harmonic sound. But if you play a note like the 3rd fret on the E string, and then go up 12 frets, so the 15th fret of that string, and then you rest your index finger of your picking hand gently above that fret, pick it with your thumb, and you get these beautiful harp harmonics. And you can jump around chord shapes with these and alternate between harmonics and open strings to get really lovely sounds. All right, so that's all available to you on any guitar. But here's what's cool about this one. You can take this technique all the way up the octave. And on a typical guitar, this would be incredibly hard to do because you'd have nothing to tell you where to put your harmonic finger. But with the Longhorn, you have these indicators with these extra high frets. And of course, this brings us to the official Sammy G review. This specific guitar, it's been played, it's been banged up, it's 40 years old, and it wasn't a high-end guitar to begin with, so I didn't have the highest expectations going into this. So it was quite the pleasant surprise to find out that it sounds, plays, and feels great. I spent about $500 on this one, and I've played worse guitars at that price. Now, the extended range thing was introduced back in the 50s when the mandolin was quite popular, but let me tell you why this never caught on. First of all, when you get to this uppermost range here, the spacing between the frets is so small that it makes playing anything beyond the 24th fret incredibly difficult. And I say this as a guy with pretty small hands. If you got sausage fingers, this is all completely useless. And since these notes up here can be hard to reach, there's a small margin of error. If you bend them a little bit, it sounds quite out of tune. And even just keeping this guitar in tune with itself, intonated, is quite challenging up high. So you're trading off a chunk of the body that could otherwise be another pickup for a bunch of frets that have minimal use. I quite like the harp harmonic thing, and the ability to reach the higher frets is nice, but I totally get why these didn't catch on. It came out in the 80s when everyone just wanted to be Eddie Van Halen. It didn't work in the 50s. It didn't work in the 80s. We're probably overdue for another reissue, but it wouldn't be something that I'd be interested in. And you know what I'm realizing? This actually would be great for slide guitar because you have easy access to those high frets with markers there as well. So why don't we take this out with a little slide blues jam on the Hondo Longhorn. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, the Hondo Longhorn, another installment in the world's weirdest guitars. Remember, for a limited time, you can grab my course, The Craft of Soloing, for only $10 if you use the link in the description. This is one of my favorite courses I've done. I think it has the most immediate impact on your playing, so grab that while you still can. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, look after yourselves, look after each other, look after the planet. I'm Samurai Guitarist, and I'll see you again soon.